Hey guys, welcome to Dogforge. My name's Paul, and welcome back to our Tasha's Cauldron of Everything series. Do you want more Tasha's and D&D content? Then hit that subscribe button and notification bell to get the latest on 5e. But now it's time to read the fine print in that mysterious contract, because today we're taking a look at the new content for the Warlock. So we're going to go through quite a few things in this video. We're going to go through the optional features, and that includes the Eldritch versatility and the expanded spell list. We're also going to be covering the new Pact of the Talisman and the new invocations. So, starting us off, we're going to take a look at the new Warlock spells, and that's going to start at the cantrip level. Now, there are some of these that are the reprints from the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, so they're not truly new to the Warlock, but if you're unfamiliar with the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, it's not the most popular or well known of the supplement books. We'll go through those as well. So for cantrips, you're going to get Booming Blade, Green Flame Blade, Lightning Lure, Mind Sliver, and Sword Burst, and all of those are Sword Coast apart from Mind Sliver. And then we're going to jump past first and second level to third level spells, as the Warlock is going to get the choice of Intellect Fortress, Spirit Shroud, Summon Fae, Summon Shadow Spawn, and Summon Undead. Now all of those are brand new spells to Tasha's, and you can see that it's throwing a lot of summoning spells at the Warlock, and we're going to see quite a few summoning spells across the spell range. So even as the Warlock slots increase and they have to keep using that new high level, there's going to be quite a few options for them. Fourth level is going to give us the option of Summon Aberration. Fifth level is going to add Mislead, Planar Binding, and Teleportation Circle to the list. 6th level is going to give us Summon Fiend and Tasha's Otherworldly Guise. 7th level is going to be Dream of the Blue Veil, and that's that new spell from Tasha's that allows you to essentially, as a group, travel from one campaign setting to another, provided that you have a person or object from that campaign setting. 9th level is going to give us Blade of Disaster, which I believe first appeared in this edition from Rime of the Frost Maiden, but I believe it's a rework of a spell from previous editions, and who doesn't love a 9th level sword spell? Gate and Weird round out our 9th level spell choices. So quite a big bump, and mostly new spells, particularly summoning spells. So if you wanted to play a summoning Warlock, there's a lot in Tasha's for you. Moving on to our new Pact boon option, Pact of the Talisman, and I gotta say, personally, not a huge fan of this, but it might be for you. So, when you get the choice to take a Pact at 3rd level, you can take Pact of the Talisman, and this gives you a talisman that can aid the wearer, not necessarily the Warlock, and arguably to get the most out of this, you're probably best off giving it to somebody else. When the wearer fails an ability check, they can add a d4 to the roll, potentially turning it into a success. You can use this benefit a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and all expended uses are restored when you finish a long rest. If you lose this talisman, you can perform a 1-hour ceremony to replace it. That ceremony can be done as part of a short or long rest, and it destroys the previous amulet. If you die, the amulet turns to ash. So, personally, I think the proficiency bonus limit on this is a little excessive, especially when you think that this is just ability checks, and not all ability checks are as simple as pass-fail. So if you have something like a knowledge check that has more of a sliding degree of success rather than a clear pass-fail binary option, then it's going to require a lot more DM adjudication if this ability is applicable at all. You know, checks like that might not be, hey, you find out if you hit this, or you don't if you fail. It's more like varying degrees of information based off different levels of DC. And that can even be the case for, charisma checks like Persuasion or Deception. So there needs to be some degree of DM buy-in to get a lot out of this ability, and it's not my favourite option, personally. But there are some invocations that do give it some interesting options, so maybe that will help save this. Next up is Eldritch Versatility, and you get this at 4th level, and it applies to whatever you get an ability score. So stock, that would be 4, 8, 12, 16, 19. This does also... yeah, this does lock you into whenever you reach a Warlock level that gives you an ASI. So you can't get to 4th level in Warlock and then say switched out to Fighter and then still make these changes. It has to be an ASI you gain through Warlock. So when you hit an ASI level, you can replace one cantrip you learned from Pact Magic with another Warlock cantrip. You can replace one option you choose for your Pact with another, so you can go from Blade to Talisman or Tome or Chain. And if you're 12th level or higher, you can replace one spell from your Mystic Arcanum with another spell available on the Warlock list. Now, of course, they do have to be the same level, but just being able to swap those out if your Mystic Arcanum isn't working for you is really nice. It means that you're not going to get locked into a choice that you thought sounded cool, but hasn't been that applicable in your actual campaign. Now, some DMs probably would have allowed you to do this to begin with, but having some written support for that really is quite nice. Moving on into the Eldritch invocation options we get in this book, and we get our first look at what a Talisman Warlock looks like. I don't know why he has glowing flower tattoos. They seem rather irrelevant, and I'm not entirely sure why they chose to make the Talisman a similar kind of coloration to the Tiefling himself. But there's some art for it. So, starting off with our invocations is Bond of the Talisman. Now, this has prerequisites of being a 12th level Warlock and having the Pact of the Talisman. And when someone else is wearing your Talisman, and this is what I was talking about, if you're taking the Pact of the Talisman, you are a support Warlock, and you're best off just making peace with the fact that you're probably just going to be giving somebody else your Talisman. You can use your action to teleport to an unoccupied space closest to the wearer of your Talisman, provided that the two of you are on the same plane of existence, and then the wearer can do the same thing using their action to teleport to you. You can teleport in this way a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and this recharges on a long rest. Now, on the surface, this sounds really awesome, unrestricted teleportation as long as you're on the same plane. However, as your party member is part of your party, I can't see this being too useful in practice. There might be some niche situations like giving it to a flying party member and then you just teleport when they've circumnavigated whatever issue in the environment there is. Or say if you were captured, or if you're trying to infiltrate somewhere. I don't see this being particularly useful in day-to-day adventuring. Now, if this was a bonus action, then it would open up some combat versatility. But it being your entire action really does knock it out of contention for that, unless things are really dire and you have to get out of dodge. But that's enough of bragging on that one. Next up is Eldritch Mind, and this has no prerequisites. Just a quick reminder, any invocation that does not have a prerequisite you can take with the new Eldritch Adept feat. So, Eldritch Mind gives you advantage on con saving throws you make to maintain concentration on a spell, similar to one of the parts of Warcaster, and if that's what you were taking Warcaster for as a Warlock, then this certainly does help you out with that, frees up your ASIs a little bit. Next up is Farscribe, and it's a pretty awesome one, and you're now going to start seeing why I personally think that the Tome Lock was probably the winner of the new invocations. The loser is most definitely the Pact of the Blade because they get nothing. They had enough love in Xanathars apparently. So Farscribe has prerequisites of Pact of the Tome and being a 5th level Warlock, and a new page appears in your Book of Shadows. With your permission, a creature can use its action to write its name on that page, and that page can contain a number of names equal to your proficiency bonus. You can cast the Sending spell, targeting a creature whose name is on that page, without using a spell slot or material components. To do so, you write the message on the page, the target hears it in their mind, and if they reply to you, the reply appears on the page. All writing disappears after 1 minute. As an action, you can magically erase the name on this page by touching it. This is pretty epic. A bunch of free sending amongst your party or NPCs that, maybe the quest giver is half a continent away, and you can easily use this to relay information to them. What this has the potential to do is to turn the Warlock into the informational hub of the party. Particularly if you went with the Great Old One patron and you've picked up that built-in telepathy, although now we do have feat options to help with that as well. Next up is Gift of the Protectors, and it's another great tome lock one. This one's going to require you to be a 9th level Warlock. So again, another page appears. With your permission, more creatures can write their names in it, and the number of names you can have on that page is again equal to your proficiency bonus. Now this one is more of a protection based one. So when any creature whose name is on the page is reduced to 0 hit points but not killed outright, the creature magically drops to 1 hit point instead. Once this magic is triggered, no creature can benefit from it until you finish a long rest. As an action, you can get rid of their name by touching it. So this is pretty great. This is essentially like relentless endurance shared with the party, first come first serve. Now this is not going to save anyone from massive damage death or power word kill or something like that. But it is a fantastic way of bumping the survivability of the entire party. And if you have a party that, say for example, has Death Ward in it, and a half-orc, and this Gift of the Protector's invocation, then that's going to be one really hard party to drop, never mind kill. Another fantastic invocation for the tome lock. But the chain lock is getting a significant amount of love here too. So this investment of the Chainmaster invocation requires that you have Pact of the Chain, and when you cast Find Familiar, you can give your familiar the following benefits. The familiar gains either a flying or swim speed, your choice, of 40 feet. As a bonus action, you can command the familiar to take the attack action. And then there's increased support for this. The familiar's weapon attacks are considered magical for the purposes of overcoming immunity and resistance. If the familiar forces a creature to make a saving throw, it uses your spell save DC, and when the familiar takes damage, you can use your reaction to grant it resistance against that damage. That is a whole lot of benefits. First of all, this makes the familiar a perfectly viable combat companion. You know, most of the classical familiars for the chain lock involve save DCs, so the imp is going to give you the option of, you know, making a saving throw to impart more poison damage, with the pseudo dragon and the sprite making saving throws or going unconscious. And there's no level restriction on this. As soon as you have Pact of the Chain at 3rd level, you can give this to your familiar, and at those levels, an imp with their hit points and all of their resistances and immunities are already still kind of durable. So this makes particularly the imp kind of a force to be reckoned with at 3rd level, and it makes your familiars relevant in combat for basically the entire game. This is a fantastic invocation. But moving back to the new Pact with Protection of the Talisman. Now, this is a 7th level Warlock invocation for the Talisman. When the wearer of your Talisman fails a saving throw, they can add a d4 to the roll, potentially turning it into a success. And this can be used again a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, so when you get this 3 times and then it just goes up from there. And it recharges on a long rest, sorry, not a short rest. Now that's better. Now you're really starting to see some value from the Talisman. However, it's worth noting that this is a 7th level feature. So maybe it might be worth it to play another Pact thus far. Play another Pact up until, say, 8th level, and then use Eldritch versatility to swap it around. Quick note on that, by the way. If you take Eldritch versatility to swap your Pact, and you have invocations that require that Pact, then you have to change those as well. So if you build yourself up as, say, again, a Blade Pact Warlock up until that point, then when you switch over to the Pact of the Talisman, you also get to swap over all of your specific invocations too. Just a nice little aside. Finally, for the specific invocations for the pacts, Rebuke of the Talisman. When the wearer of your talisman is hit by an attacker you can see within 30 feet of you, not the wearer, it has to be within 30 feet of you, you can use your reaction to deal psychic damage to the attacker equal to your proficiency bonus and push it 10 feet away from the talisman's wearer. This has no level restriction, and this has no usage restriction. Now this is personally the first thing that I'm reading for the talisman that I'm like, oh yeah. You know, at will reaction damage and pushing them 10 feet. There is serious potential here to combo this by, say, putting your talisman on a barbarian, whilst the druid in the group casts spike growth, and then between your talisman reaction and, say, repelling blast, just shredding things with forced movement. That's a really great invocation to take, and I think it's worth a hell of a lot more than the others, including the base ability of the talisman. But finally, we're going to get a rather on-theme and particularly useful invocation that I think is really going to resonate with a lot of people. So, Undying Servitude, this is a 5th level Warlock invocation, and this lets you cast Animate Dead without a spell slot once a day, for free. You can do this once per long rest. So finally, if you wanted to be, you know, a fiend lock that used undead as your foot soldiers and servants, you can now totally do that without screwing over your spell slots. Like, you could argue that it's not as good as just getting access to Animate Dead as a spell. Personally, I prefer getting it in an invocation like this, because it's not eating into your most likely 2 spell slots at a time. And it allows you to make yourself a little foot soldier. And then as you get to higher levels, you can have this at the same time that you cast Dance Macabre, and have a whole bunch of, you know, zombies or skeletons or whatever roll into battle with you. I think that's a great addition to the Warlock overall. And it's with that great addition that we've come to the end of the Tasha's additions for the Warlock. Now, I think overall this is great. I think the Tome Lock and the Chain Lock have come out of this really strongly. Eldritch versatility is great. The Talisman, I think I've made my feelings pretty clear so far on the Talisman. But that's just what I think. What do you think about the new Pact of the Talisman and Invocations? Let us know in the comment section down below, and hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. Whilst you're down there, hit that subscribe button and notification bell for more D&D and Tasha's content. I've been Paul, and I'll see you next time at the Forge.